Seeker, whoever you are, wherever and however you are, I tell you, even now, there are waters, great waters of aliveness, deep inside your being, ones yet to be found, yet to behold, be tasted. A great river of aliveness, wholeness, and possibility flowing within you. The same river that flows through the living world, the natural world, that flows from the same source, that follows a course all mighty rivers follow, to a greatly opening, welcoming sea. Welcome to the latest floating poetry broadcast. And thank you for leaning in, some of you for the first time, others faithfully again, to show 140 in my ongoing weekly series, coming to you live from the seafaring, wayfaring coast of Rhode Island. This is your poet and poetorialist Colin Goedecke, a voice for living our days more fully, more alively, more poetically. Broadcast 139 was about floating itself, the animating principle for these programs. Setting ourselves, our senses, our feelings, our memories, imaginings, and wonderings afloat, taking to varied waters and atmospheres, to outer and inner spaces, to places of suspension, levitation, especially places that buoy our spirits, our hearts, our hopes, and bringing in symbols, natural to man-made, that inspire our lightness of being. Well, this week, finding your way through your life, your outer and inner life, the world at large, to your deeper self, from your seekings to your wanderings, wayfarings to pathfindings, and maybe some trailblazing. Let's make our way there for a while together, through cultural commentary, poetry, and inquiry that I hope you feel speak to these and other kinds of past, current, or coming seekings and findings of yours. Let's begin in an ascending way, we might say. Above the tree line, down in the forest of pinon or ponderosa, spruce or juniper, you can't see the terrain above, what you'll encounter from the weather to the boulders, until you hike up through the tree line, past the last twisted wood. You can really only engage from here a way up, and only as you go. Apply your wisdom or intuition of the moment to your next movement up your mountain, to the ease or challenge of your next choice, chosen momentum in the now opened out air of your ascent. Above the tree line. Missing the Boat by Naomi Shihab Nye. It is not so much that the boat passed and you failed to notice it. It is more like the boat stopping directly outside your bedroom window, the captain blowing the signal horn, the band playing a rousing march. The boat shouted, waving bright flags, its silver hull blinding in the sunlight. But you had this idea you were going by train. You kept checking the timetable, digging for tracks. And the boat got tired of you, so tired it pulled up the anchor and raised the ramp. The boat bobbed into the distance, shrinking like a toy, at which point you probably realized you had always loved the sea. Thank you, Naomi Shihab Nye, wonderful poet. Missing the Boat. Well, 3 years before I found my daily life by the sea here in Rhode Island, I was moved toward that feeling place, and I felt it especially one day out on the South Fork by the North Sea area of Long Island, June of 2017, through the North Sea. I passed through a North Sea heading west after a Santa Barbara-style sestina with friends of long and lovely years. I carry my surf casting rod that casts me back to another life I had, to greatly savored, salt-aired times that feel now so far away, and my sky-casting rods, large, bright kites I would fish in the clouds with. But today I'm heading west, from seaside to city to countryside, body and mind refreshed, content. The sea a sure north star for me to follow, soon and somewhere beyond here. So we dial 3 years after this, 3 years later, as I moved in earnest to that North Star place. This is called setting sail. The time and tide have come to set sail, to hoist the mizzenmast of this yearning body and spirit, weigh anchor and follow the course of my intuition, my inner navigation, north by coast to New England, to Rhode Island, and there chart a fresh chapter by the sea and its salty music, at the feet of the reflected sun and rhyming waves of clouds, moons, and stars. So I have been here ever since. It may be worthwhile to not just read about pilgrims and pioneers and those setting sail in that way, but to be one ourselves. This is pioneer. You who can brave crossing to a new frontier, through all the unknowns and unknowables. You who can be ready to risk your life for your dreams. You who can believe in a more promising, flourishing place where your heart can run free. You, venturer, pathfinder, hinterlander. I was looking at Sam Harris's book, Waking Up, A Guide to Spirituality Without Religion. He's a neuroscientist and philosopher, and there were a couple of things in here that I thought worth sharing with you. In there he says, most of us spend our time seeking happiness and security without acknowledging the underlying purpose of our search. Each of us is looking for a path back to the present. We are trying to find good enough reasons to be satisfied now. Acknowledging this, that this is the structure of the game we are playing, allows us to play it differently. How we pay attention to the present moment largely determines the character of our experience and therefore the quality of our lives. This message, of course, is nothing new, says the Marginalian. Half a century ago, Alan Watts made a spectacular case for it, building on millennia of Eastern philosophy. But what makes our era singular, and this discourse particularly timely, Harris points out, is that there is now a growing body of scientific research substantiating these ancient intuitions. Waking Up, Sam Harris. Well, I'm curious where you might be in your spiritual self and your evolving. This is not a spiritual tourist. Fine if you're one who wants to point and shoot moments of far-flung, well-hung spiritual movements, selfies from old and new self-development courses, books, gurus, discourses. But not for me. I'm here for the genuine articles, seeking and living all the way into and radiantly out from the essential spiritual being I am, inside this body, inside this earth suit, seeking everything meaningful behind the facades, under the surfaces, flowing through the molecules. 'Tis true. Rob Bresney and his e-zine, astrologyzone.com. So I always like reading every week. You're exempt from pursuing, quote, enlightenment. How is enlightenment like $1 million vacation home? For some seekers, spiritual enlightenment is the ultimate commodity. They believe that through diligent meditation and self-improvement, there will come a day when it will no longer elude their grasp. Breaking through to the singular state of cosmic consciousness, they will forever after own it free and clear. Permanently illuminated, never to backslide into the dull ignominy of normal human awareness. Here's what I have to say about that. It's a delusion. The fact is, the nature of perfection is always mutating. What constitutes enlightenment today will always be different tomorrow. Even if you're fortunate and wise enough to score a sliver of, quote, enlightenment, it's not a static treasure that becomes your indestructible, everlasting possession. Rather, it remains a mercurial knack that must be continually re-earned. If you want to befriend the divine wow, you must not only be willing to change ceaselessly, you have to love to change ceaselessly. Lucky you, all of creation is conspiring to help you live like that. Thank you, Rob Bresney. Wendell Berry, A Homecoming. One faith is bondage. Two are free. In the trust of old love, cultivation shows a dark, graceful wilderness at its heart. Wild is that wilderness. We roam the distances of our faith, safe beyond the bounds of what we know. O love, open. Show me my country. Take me home. Thank you, Wendell Berry, the poet farmer or farmer poet, Kentucky. Well, I'm all for finding the light everywhere I can, in myself, in others, in nature, in the wider world around me as I go through my days. And that seeking and finding is beyond fulfilling, beyond enlivening. So here's take the light path, the light of footpath, the light of heart and mind path, a bright, inviting, life-dappled, love-leafed path, a whole soul path, sunlighted by day, moon-lanterned by night, open to you, ready for you, calling you there. Take the light path, why not? Well, I do have some questions for you. I'm going to ask you some of them now, if I may, about finding your way. How did you find your way to the life you have now? Was it an unexpected journey? What were some of the best twists? What made a significant difference in enabling you to get where you are when you got to where you are? Did you have to get lost at any point to find your way to something? How often do you rely on your own inner guidance system, your inner compass, your deeper intuition to direct you, your choices, your actions? What's the most important thing you're seeking, outer or inner? What about the greatest challenge to getting to that place, that point, or that goal? How deep or intrepid of a seeker are you? What are you willing to risk to make vital discoveries? Have you ever been overtaken by wanderlust? And if so, how did you feed it? What about wandering? How often do you let yourself wander, simply wander? Your mind, your imagination, or your body? Just let the spirit move you instead of the will. How often? What part of your life to date has been an intriguing, if greatly challenging, odyssey? If not exactly Homerian, relatively epic for you. What springs to mind when you think of Robinson Crusoe and his iconic story? What if you were in his shoes? literally or metaphorically. Of course, he went barefoot, but you know what I mean. Yeah. How do you think you'd do? What would you do? And what about stories of outward bounders, those going into the wilderness, or mystics and others going many, if not 40 days and nights in the desert to discover or rediscover elemental things about the world, about themselves? Where do you want to go from here? What has life since taught you to make it possible, all the more so for you to do that? Well, wherever that is, may your way from here to there be full of revealings, serendipities, and synchronicities. Pay attention to oracles, messages and messengers, and unexpected teachers of all kinds that show up as you journey on. Yeah, they're there, especially when you're open. Start to see them all the time, hear them, feel them. From the Book of Hours by Rainer Maria Rilke. My life is not this steeply sloping hour in which you see me hurrying. Much stands behind me. I stand before it like a tree. I am only one of many mouths, and at that the one that will be still the soonest. I am the rest between two notes, which are somehow always in discord because death's note wants to climb over, but in the dark interval, reconciled, they stay there trembling, and the song goes on beautiful. Thank you, Rilke. And what of excavating, unearthing some buried part of yourself, or some removed or reclusive part, like finding a lost treasure? To you of hidden heart, of sad or lonely, longing and deserving heart hidden from view, I hold out a hand to yours. Sense what you cannot say in words or feel easy to show. Offer a gentleness to soften your reticence, a safe harbor for your hiddenness, a place for your heart to enter and freely drop its sometime achingly heavy anchor. To you, whoever you are of hidden heart may be out there. David Wagner, Lost. Stand still. The trees ahead and bushes beside you are not lost. Wherever you are is called here, and you must treat it as a powerful stranger, must ask permission to know it and be known. The forest breathes. Listen. It answers. I have made this place around you. If you leave it, you may come back again, saying, here. No two trees are the same to raven. No two branches are the same to wren. If what a tree or a bush does is lost on you, you are surely lost. Stand still. The forest knows where you are. You must let it find you. Thank you, David Wagner. I've read that other times, apropos of other times, themes. Wonderful. From the Yucatan Peninsula, Mexico, 1999. Found and lost. The turret of a lost civilization swirls up through the sand, and you dig down to discover what else may remain. But instead of Ur or Atlantis, you find only grains of sand ground from centuries of time, which your world too will one day join. Well, the more ephemeral you realize it all is, and maybe you do, the more precious, vital each moment becomes. Over yonder, for Jon Rik on his birthday, wonderful Norwegian friend of mine. Over yonder is going in a direction beyond actual or usual roads, a life lived by way of moving targets, local appearing, disappearing, and now vanished landmarks, and by pointing motions made by others, sometimes mentors, often strangers, some who may be angels in disguise, indicating the general area in which desired locations exist, which may even be in sight. There's a reason it all rhymes with wander. So gather your clues of context and subtext, gesture and conjecture, and keep going. No matter what, you're in for further adventure over yonder. Not just, as I thought along about this, not just finding our own way, our own individual way, certainly finding our way as a society, and also into the deeper wonders of another being. It could be a friend, it could be a love partner. Well, here's where an exploration of mine once led me, revealed to me more deeply, more beautifully. This is back in Germany, in West Pomerania, 2015. Inside you, for a once love. Deep inside you is a luminous blue grotto, sun-swept, wind-swept seas, groves of ocean grasses undulating, meditating in slowest motion, hidden orchards ripe with late summer rays, shadows, succulent fruits, towering cloud banks, brilliant white brushed with violet, northern lights, fireworks, firelight. Deep inside you are virgin springs, cisterns, cenotes, sources, clusters of flowers that open, close, perfume, ever bloom, clusters of stars that shimmer in from unknown constellations, silk-lined passages, soft-petaled entrances, rare places to behold, beheld, enfolded, halls, chambers, corners aplay with mysterious felt melodies, harmonies, delirious rhythms, reveries, places of deep joinings, enjoinings, pourings, purifying, all inside you. So, my friends, what such explorings and discoverings have you experienced of another that you might write or sing about or paint, sculpt? We can so often in large but also small yet significant ways help others on their sojourns, their wayfarings, their self-seekings, as we can. I'm sure many of us do or have or will. This is a stepping stone. This was for a friend. I'm glad to have been a stepping stone, often a skipping stone, for the wide river you had to cross, the deep life waters you had to traverse, from the near side of hiddenness to the far side of wholeness, where you could then travel on, more freely, sure-footedly, into the future. As we make our way along, whatever that is, whatever way that is, and not everyone can stay, yes, or always belong on next or some parts of our journey. It's not always easy to handle, but how true is that? This poem came to me motoring along the Baltimore-Washington Parkway back in the fall of 2016, fallen off the map. Like thriving byways back in time, and places you once called home or set your heart or sights on. People who used to be contiguous with you, share an open border, can fade slowly or fall suddenly off the map of your life. Disappear with all their color and contours, elevations and scale from your personal geography, your mappa mundi. To be or not to be, or only distantly, sometimes wistfully, remembered. Map of the New World by Derek Walcott. Number 1, archipelagos. At the end of this sentence, rain will begin. At the rain's edge, a sail. Slowly the sail will lose sight of islands. Into a mist will go the belief in harbors of an entire race. The 10 Years' War is finished. Helen's hair a grey cloud. Troy a white ash pit by the drizzling sea. The drizzle tightens like the strings of a harp. A man with clouded eyes picks up the rain and plucks the first line of the Odyssey. Thank you. Derek Walcott, A Map of the World. Which brings me to that great poem. I won't read it all. I'm going to read you the opening and close. Ulysses by Alfred Lord Tennyson. It little profits that an idle king, by this still hearth among these barren crags, matched with an aged wife, I meet and dole unequal laws unto a savage race, that hoard and sleep and feed and know not me. I cannot rest from travel, I will drink life to the lees. In the end, come, my friends, 'tis not too late to seek a newer world. Push off, and sitting well in order, smite the sounding furrows, for my purpose holds to sail beyond the sunset and the baths of all the western stars until I die. It may be that the gulfs will wash us down. It may be we shall touch the happy isles and see the great Achilles whom we knew. Though much is taken, much abides. And though we are not now that strength which in old days moved earth and heaven, that which we are, we are. One equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fate, but strong in will to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. Thank you, Alfred Lord Tennyson, Ulysses. And apropos of his tale, Homecoming by A.E. Stallings. It was as if she pulled a thread each time he saw her, that unraveled all the distance he had traveled to sleep at home in his own bed, or sit together in a room spinning yards of monsters, wars, hours counted by the chores. He loved to watch her at the loom, the fluent wrists, the liquid motion of small tasks not thought about, the shuttle leaping in and out, dolphins sowing the torn ocean. Homecoming. Thank you, A.E. Stallings. What about those times, if you've had them, when you had to follow a course and stay a course that was essential, it was vital, even if it was daunting, and made no clear sense to others around you? Have you been in that place, in that situation? I certainly have. And I carried on, because I had to, knew I had to. A Narrow Passage, 2016. Fjords and rapids right now. Nowhere else to go but through. Past sirens, too, like Odysseus, like Jason of the Argonauts, resisting their beautifully dangerous song, resisting being lured onto the rocks of others' headlands, islands. The passage may be alarmingly narrow, but I feel, in my soul mariner's marrow, I will make it through to the open welcome waters, where the sailing will be wide, will be safe. For now, I must keep playing the lyre of my spirit, resoundingly, reassuringly enough to drown out all other beckoning, beguiling, but shipwrecking voices. Narrow passage, yes, we definitely must all, each of us, avoid any shipwrecking voices, however beguiling they are. I want to point you, I'm not going to get into it too much for just the slight lick, but Emergence Magazine recently had a worthwhile article that may interest you. It's called On the Road with Thomas Merton. It's by Fred Banson, and it's a film by Jeremy Seifert. Thomas Merton said, "What can we gain by sailing to the moon if we are not able to cross the abyss that separates us from ourselves?" And here's the beginning of the piece. In a time of sweeping injustice and uncertainty, how do we resist the inclination to simply turn away and instead make the conscious choice to look deeper? In the summer of 1968, after 26 years of ascetic life, and in the context of the, quote, ever-increasing frenzy, tension, explosiveness of this country, the Christian mystic Thomas Merton undertook a pilgrimage to the American West, traveling to Redwoods Monastery and Christ in the Desert Monastery. In his journal, Woods, Shore, Desert, Merton described how on this journey he found a new way of seeing God, a new bearing in the landscape itself. 50 years later, in the midst of still more global divisiveness and crisis, filmmaker Jeremy Seifert and writer Fred Batson set out to follow Merton's journey, retracing the monk's path across the landscape in an intimate meditation on his life and the relevance of the spiritual journey today. So I point you to that article in that film. Quite beautiful. Passage clouté, zebra crossing. This was written in 2008 from my goddaughter, then at that time still is, Axel Scheib. While countless others with the same stripes cross the landscape the same way, through the same sun-white days and sunless nights, you of a different stripe look under the landscape of your skin to see and find another way to go. Are you going your own way, my friends? Taking a road less traveled? If so, bravo, brava. If not, why not? Now may be just the time. Well, you can. Are we finding our ways, each of us, to nature's next seasons, like the promise of spring during the depth of winter? Well, this is a piece that I wanted to share that I wrote for a dear friend whose great joy is to experience 3 springs every year. One in Texas. He makes his way to New York to catch the next one, and then to Maine to catch the next one. This is called Traveling to the Springs for Richard Russack. Like a seeker of oases, divining rodder of fresh waters, you travel to each spring, west to east, north, and coast, to meet the season of opening and blossoming as it unfolds all its beauty, pageantry, promise, to be fed 3 times by its enriching tints, its refreshing scents, to be uplifted in spirit, in body by each journey, by each entry into La Primavera. Traveling to the springs. Here's a 2019 ode to the winter solstice. I felt fitting. As above and below. As the sun and gyring heavens, the ancient constellations above, balance with the turning earth, this terra firma we call home below. Maybe in their solstice pausing and stilling, we can find our own place and peace of balance between them and within. Feel the deeper harmony of our being, our equally remarkable and faithful natures. Welcome this season of our life, the rhyme of our living, and a sense of our next unfoldings, whatever they may be, however clear or mysterious. As we follow through all familiar and unknown bareness, darkness, the light of our own bright gathered inner stars. Spread the warmth of the truest, tenderest parts of our hearts. Lean in to the comforting grounding of our earthly bodies as we wayfare out, singly and together, toward more sun-long days, gentle springs, and footloose, time-soft summers. As above and below. Lost in the Milky Way by Linda Hogan. Some of us are like trees that grow with a spiral grain, as if prepared for the path of the Spirit's journey to the world of all souls. It is not an easy path. A dog stands at the opening constellation past the great helping hand. The dog wants to know, did you ever harm an animal? Hurt any creature? Did you take a life you didn't eat? This is the first on your map. There is another, my people, made of the great beyond that lies farther away than this galaxy. It is a world that can't be imagined by ordinary means. After this first one, the next could be a map of forever. It could be a cartography shining only at some times of the year, like a great web of finery some spider pulled from herself to help you recall your true following, your first white breath in the cold. The next door opens, and old woman counts your scars. She's interested in how you have been hurt and not in anything akin to sin. From between stars are the words we now refuse, loneliness, longing, whatever suffering might follow your life into the sky. Once those are gone, the life you had against your own will, the hope, even the prayers take you one more bend around the river of sky. Well, I mentioned our stars, and what, dear listeners, is your North Star, your true north? How have you followed it, been faithful to following it? And where is it leading you, guiding you, shining your way to? The North Star. It doesn't shine far off. It's closer than you think. It shines clearly, prominently, not outside, but deep inside you, night and day, in the great constellation of your being. A constant presence, Polaris, in your crown, fixed and bright enough to navigate by, circumnavigate with, to follow, for when you're ready and willing, on a luminous, longed-for way of life, heart, self, terrestrial and celestial, your ever-faithful, providential North Star. The philosopher Alan Watts, from his book, Become What You Are. We've all met those who are trying very hard to be real persons, to give their lives reality or meaning, and to live as distinct from existing. These seekers are of many kinds, highbrow and lowbrow, ranging from students of arcane wisdom to the audiences of popular speakers on pep and personality, selling yourself and making your life a success. I have never yet met anyone who tried to become a real person with success. The result of such attempts is invariably loss of personality, for there's an ancient paradox of the spiritual life, whereby those who try to make themselves great become small. The paradox is even a bit more complicated than this. It also means that if you try indirectly to make yourself great by making yourself small, you succeed only in remaining small. It's all a question of motive, of what you want. Motives may be subtly concealed, and we may not call the desire to be a real person the desire to be great, but that is just a matter of words. So many modern religions and psychologies make this fundamental mistake of trying to make the tail wag the dog, which is what the quest for personality amounts to. When we revere real personality in others, we are liable to become mere imitators. When we revere it as an ideal for ourselves, here is the old trouble of wanting to make yourself great. It's all a question of pride, for if you revere life and reality only in particular types of personal living, you deny it to such humble things as, for instance, salt shakers, specks of dust, worms, flowers, and the great unregenerate masses of the human race. But a life, a reality, a Tao that can be at once a Christ, a Buddha, a Lao Tzu, and an ignorant fool or a worm, this is something really mysterious and wonderful and really worth devotion if you consider it for a while. For life and reality are not things you can have for yourself unless you accord them to all others. They do not belong to particular persons any more than the sun, moon, and stars. Thank you, Alan Watts. Wherever you are on your way, you're seeking or finding right now, you've traveled in your being from somewhere, from some other part of the journey to here, that likely enabled you to arrive where you find yourself as we speak. This is a poem I wrote for a wonderful friend in California, Dennis de Freitas Farrier, on his 79th birthday in 2021. It's called 79er. Man of California, of the American West, who struck it rich the day he was born, by being born, and discovering over time all the gold the rush of life, of nature, had to offer him. Treasure it takes a certain open heart and mind to find. Patient trekking, panning, living to behold. Even more preciously now for this 79er to hold in his good and shining hands. Toast to him and to that. poem from New York City, 2017, Pain perdu, lost bread. The last 50 years were spent casting mine on life's waters, on many inner and outer seas, rivers, marshes, and streams, freely, generously. And now it has come back, not lost, but returned in a plenitude of loaves of love and kindness, goodwill, invitations to a greater dance, delighted seats at flowing feasts. Consider, too, all the many kinds of homecomings, from the traditional to the emotional to the metaphysical. Homecoming. After a great wandering, after being lost and found in life's woods, after making journeys through many strange odysseys, wild uncertainties, coming home to self, to the most significant other, to a welcome sense of place, purpose in this world, to a dwelling in wholeness, wellness, feeling truly joyful, truly grateful. It's a poem from my poetorial piece, Ability. And I contributed as a poet laureate of the Truce Foundation of the United States to the 2018 International Winter Olympic Games. This was written dedicated to the people of Korea, Norths and Souths. Throughout history, countries and kingdoms, dynasties and dominions from the Americas to Asia, Europe to Britannia, have lost their civility, descended sadly into hostilities. Throughout life, then and now, men and women have, too, at times, left their inner poles, their true norths and souths, lost that precious harmony, entered blindly into inhumanities. As Mr. Lincoln sagely said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. Rightly so. From houses of nations and cultures to houses of communities and self, yours and mine, or stand well or worthily, until they hold themselves, until we hold ourselves close to the deeper heartfulness of mankind, our human kindness, and the benevolent geography of nature. Norths and Souths. From The Marginalian on the Art of Self-Renewal, the pioneering social scientist John Gardner on how to keep your work and your spirit alive over the long run. In this book, Self-Renewal, the self-renewing man, he says, looks forward to an endless and unpredictable dialogue between his potentialities and the claims of life. Not only the claims he encounters, but the claims he invents. Well, Gardner, in 1964, was the U.S. Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare, and a prolific social science writer. And he published that book then. We'd love to have someone like that running that department, wouldn't we, right now? I think that would be quite amazing. So in there he says, the renewal of societies and organizations can go forward only if someone cares. Apathy and lowered motivation are the most widely noted characteristics of a civilization on the downward path. Everyone, either in his career or as a part-time activity, should be doing something about which he or she cares deeply. And if they're to escape the prison of the self, it must be something not essentially egocentric in nature. There may be a point at which raw young vitality and mature competence and wisdom reach a kind of ideal balance, but there's no possibility of freezing change at that point, as one might stop the motion in a home movie. There's nothing static in these processes. In the ever-renewing society, what matters is a system or framework within which continuous innovation, renewal, and rebirth can occur. Unless we attend to the requirements of renewal, aging institutions and organizations will eventually bring our civilization to moldering ruin. Unless we cope with the ways in which modern society oppresses the individual, we shall lose the creative spark that renews both societies and individuals. Well, how timely is that? That's why I included that for us. Realigning your headline, heart line, your storyline, skyline, your song line, coastline, your water line, fishing line, plumb line, time line, all your lifelines. sure I have time to share this, but it's a wonderful piece I've been rereading, Drinking from the River of Light, Mark Nepo's illuminating book. And I may save it because I just don't think we're going to be able to get to this today, this time. I'll save it for another time. Unless there's one piece I can share with you. He talks about Matisse, and now he was in a very hard place physically, but he kept working to paint and figure things out way into the end of his life. And his effort, it confirms his effort, leads to surrender, and that both lead to a greater form of seeing, because he starts all this with a quote from Yogananda, never give up, then surrender. The greater instance of his seeing that in turn leads us to work harder at learning from what we've seen, whether we consider ourselves artists or not. We're all involuntarily artisans, stuck in the effort of living, with his unpredictable openings of grace that carry us along and make us feel complete from time to time. One of the braveries of perseverance is the commitment to keep looking again and again, to keep returning to what moves us and intrigues us, as we might return to shy teachers who need to know that we're not giving up before they'll reveal their teachings. Going with the Stream is the chapter in that book that if you want to look that up, you can. So as we come into the last sharings and musings for now, maybe be like a mariner on life's sea, as an intrepid modern mariner. This is stay salty, stay briny, you roving, full-sailing, free-versing mariner. Keep the sun on your shoulders, the bright blue sea at your feet, your face to the four winds, your chest swelling with sweet, salt air, the cork of your heart all afloat, bobbing with ease, with saline joy. Stay salty. The dark hours of my being, another Rilke poem. I love the dark hours of my being. My mind deepens into them. There I can find, as in old letters, the days of my life, already lived, and held like a legend, and understood. Then the knowing comes. I can open to another life that's wide and timeless. So I am sometimes like a tree rustling over a gravesite and making real the dream of the one its living roots embrace. A dream once lost among sorrows and songs. The dark hours of my being. Well, there are times when we need, I certainly have needed, to go into a kind of hibernation now and then. Maybe this has been so for you, especially maybe during the pandemic or in this winter time. This is the hibernaut. Burrows away, goes deep inside, slows down their emotional metabolism. To enter another state under the skin, retreat into another rhythm, a hidden rhythm, months to years, however long it takes, to discover, cross over to other recesses of the self, often unfindable in the open air or on the outsides of the world's daily doings, its diverting comings and goings. To transition to a much lower modulation of heat, breath, beat of heart, through a freeze-frame change of season, life weather. Then re-emerge, spring out at a right time, a natural knowing time, through sifted layers of stillness, darkness, and chill, into welcoming foyers of liveliness, newness, and thaw, with more freshness and growth, more self-presence and strength. Hibernaut. John O'Donohue has this blessing. Maybe we can take this in for each of us, but also all of us as a society right now, as a humanity, so in need of such new beginnings. This is for a new beginning, blessing. In out-of-the-way places of the heart, where your thoughts never think to wander, this beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you are ready to emerge. For a long time it has watched your desire, feeling the emptiness growing inside you, noticing how you willed yourself on, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. It watched you play with the seduction of safety and the gray promises that sameness whispered. Heard the waves of turmoil rise and relent. Wondered, would you always live like this? Then the delight, when your courage kindled, and out you stepped onto new ground, your eyes young again with energy and dream, a path of plenitude opening before you. Though your destination is not yet clear, you can trust the promise of this opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning that is at one with your life's desire. Awaken your spirit to adventure. Hold nothing back. Learn to find ease in risk. Soon you will be home in a new rhythm, where your soul senses the world that awaits you. Thank you, John O'Donohue, for that blessing. This is from his book, To Bless the Space Between Us. And last for now, our Odysseys. No fingerprints of any two Odysseuses alike. Each of us with our own epic to live and tell, our own Ithacas to seek, to journey to, our own wanderings and concealments, friendships and testings, omens, demons, passions, questions to contend with, along the wild, unknown way, touched at times by the graces, sometimes caprices, of greater and lesser gods, of the singular lands and seas we wind up traversing. All the joyful and painful passages, encounters, vantages, offering each of us one-of-a-kind chances and choices, egoic to heroic, to see, to take, to make it every turn. Odysseys. Well, thank you again, all of you and each, for leaning in, for floating and feeling in, for sharing my shows with others to enjoy, and for those of you who send affirmations. That means a lot to me, and gifts of appreciation, donations that help me keep creating and presenting these shows to nourish and uplift your heart, mind, and spirit, and that of many others. If there's a yet-to-be-explored theme you'd like me to speak to, send me an email to colin@thepoetorialist.com. I'd certainly love to know what your experience was of this show and finding your way. Send me a note. To send a contribution, you can do that by Venmo to Fivefold, Fivefold, at pipeline.com, or by PayPal to me to the same email, or by check and regular mail to me at P.O. Box 1032, Westerly, Rhode Island, 02891, or by credit or debit card through my site, thepoetorialist.com, and the Donate tab. Patrons can, as always, sponsor or host me at times in this year of 2023 and beyond as a working poet in residence in an agreed place in the U.S. or elsewhere in the world for an agreed time to create a new flight of poetic art dedicated to them. Email me and we can begin exploring. Meanwhile, you can hear all the broadcasts online, on YouTube, on the Floating Poetry playlist. I hope you'll lean in soon again. Until then, dear listeners, may you find your way in the best and most meaningful ways to desired places of living or working or thinking or feeling, creating, relating, or more fully being. And may all parts of your journey from here, your current or yet to come life passages, be greatly or quietly enlightening, enlivening. Goodbye for now, and good spirits.